With more than 100,000 people affected by the recent floods in KwaZulu-Natal, communities are now rebuilding and salvaging whatever they can. While some areas remain unsafe, residents of Quarry Road in Durban say leaving is not an option. Our reporter Mawande Kheswa has more, and he's stationed there. Mawande, very good afternoon to you. Residents are clearly adamant that they will not leave.
Good afternoon, Mpo. That is indeed the case. One would look at the landscape and listen to that commentary and ask themselves, why not? And the answer is a little bit more complex than one can actually think. What the residents there are saying when we did speak to them is that there is a church that is offering shelter, but the problem is not all of them can go to that shelter. So that's the first problem. The second is, if they leave the area, where do they go? Because the same reason that meant that they build their structures on that land is the same reason that they can't leave, that it was the land that they found that was vacant at the time. And if they vacate that area, where do they then go? Where do they then rebuild? And so for them, that's the major challenge, saying leaving is not an option based on those facts. So rather than to not have shelter, they're trying to rebuild, salvage whatever they can, corrugated iron on the ground. There are logs that they are using, there are rocks. They're just salvaging whatever they can to try and rebuild. And that is the main issue that they've raised with them, not being able to move away from that area.
And let's just talk about perhaps the other elements that may be a contributing factor to the reasons why they don't want to leave and cannot leave. How has the crime activity been reported? Because we heard reports of people now stealing from those who are trying to piece their lives together.
In that particular area, there wasn't much in the way of complaints or concerns around criminal activity. People there are just focused on rebuilding and making ends meet, considering the circumstances, because you're dealing with a community that is on the edge at this point. The situation remains volatile as far as the weather is concerned, because every drop of rain brings about anxiety among people. What we accustomed to be a soothing sound is now a sound that brings about anxiety, that makes people uneasy, they on the edge, particularly when you were in an environment where you saw houses collapsing, where you saw the river moving with houses and people, because there were deaths, there were fatalities. And so for them, the focus has shifted to a normal life or everyday life, to a situation of survival. What do I do? Where do I move to next? It's just become much harder for them. So really, it would seem as though their efforts are more on that. There's a good, I'd say something good that has come out is the sense of camaraderie among neighbors, among communities. And they're saying that people are helping one another, because those who did have their structures washed away are now living with some of their families or friends or people within the community. So that sense of togetherness is there, but the situation remains volatile. But as far as criminal activities in that particular community, there isn't much. We did visit other areas where there are informal settlements, and while there was some form of damage, it wasn't as severe, where you didn't really see a number of houses that had collapsed. But the most affected of the ones that we were able to see is that of Quarry Road.
And very lastly, before we let you go, what about the helping hands that have come to the fore? I mean, you speak about the sense of Ubuntu within the community, but we've heard of various organizations coming together to bring food parcels, bring clothes and other donations. Are they reaching that part of KwaZulu-Natal?
From my conversation with the community there, and this is more than one person, and they all echoed the same sentiment, saying that as far as helping hands are concerned, They've only received from a political party in the way of the EFF. They say that the EFF did descend onto the area to give them food parcels, and that's the only aid that they received. And they continued to then plead with whomever can go to Quarry Road and assist them, because the situation is dire there. So for them, it's only that political party that has actually been able to make it to them and assist. And I know that various organizations are going far and wide to try and reach various communities. It may just be a matter of time in that they're yet to reach that community.
Let's leave it there for now, as of course we bring you the latest on the ground coming out of the developing story in KwaZulu-Natal.